Hi everyone. Hope you're all staying safe. Not touching your face and all that. This is something I had talked about doing with some of my friends off Twitter a little while ago. Just I know a lot of us are doing readings, particularly as our ability to promote our books is limited, and we're all looking for something to entertain one another. So I thought that I would read an excerpt from my book, Judith. And hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you may even seek out the full book based on how much you enjoy it. But let's go ahead and get started. Prologue. He awoke, looked around, and realized he was not in his bedroom. That in and of itself wasn't necessarily cause for alarm. Anyone who stayed overnight in a hotel or a house not their own knows that little jolt. In just a moment, you remember how you got there and the jolt fades. Unless, of course, you then realize you're handcuffed, gagged, and on your knees. He sputtered through the gag. He wasn't really even trying to say anything, so much as refusing to acquiesce to it. His vision adjusted to the lighting, just in time to see the back of a black-gloved hand swing toward his head. The pain seemed too intense for a backhand before he realized that the blow had landed on an open gash in his scalp, most likely the one that directly preceded his being dragged there. You make another voice, you lose a finger, a woman's voice hissed. Between the force of the blow and the tone of her voice, he had no problem believing her. He focused on what lay in front of him and made out that camera on the tripod. Next to it stood a woman who might have been unusually tall, but it was hard to tell given his vantage point. She was wearing black jeans, a red hoodie, dark glasses, and a red scarf over the bottom of her face, which made him wonder why he was so sure she was a woman at all. Then she confirmed it by turning to the woman who had hit him. "We're ready." The woman next to him raised a finger and then roughly jerked the gag out of his mouth. She held a revolver a few inches from his face and cocked the hammer. "You are only to speak in response to my questions. If you say anything that is not a response to my questions, I fucking shoot you. Do you understand?" He nodded. The camera's light flickered on. "What's your name?" the woman asked. His voice tasted strange in his mouth after the gag and the enforced silence. "Martin Vickner." "What do you do for a living, Martin Vickner?" "I own a bar." "And who is Octavia Tuck?" He forgot himself. "Hold on, what the fuck is..." She grabbed his right hand by the wrist, yanking the cuff's chain taut, and blew his index finger completely off. She let him scream for a while before she made him continue, which was generous of her considering. When he had quieted down, she put the gun against his earlobe. "Who is Octavia Tuck, Martin?"
"She's a fucking waitress at my bar."
"But there's more to it than that, isn't there?"
"Yes, there's more to it, but you just shot off my fucking finger."
She seemed like she was getting impatient. "Please continue, Martin, and remember that you only get 9 more chances to fuck this up."
She accused me of raping her.
"And?"
"And the charges were dismissed."
"Why?"
"Because the DA knew there was a drug dealer who stole out of my place and I rolled over on him in exchange for the dismissal."
"And did you rape her?" He was about to say fuck you, but he thought better of it. He exhaled slowly.
"Yes."
"I'm glad you're being honest with us, Martin. That's going to make things go quicker." She put the gun in a waistband. "You see, we've been investigating you for months. God knows we don't want to do anything without making sure it's necessary." She turned back toward the camera. "This man, Martin Vickner, is an admitted rapist, but he will never serve a day in prison. Is that justice?" Her voice sounded more frenzied. It was frightening, even after you adjusted for having been kidnapped and mutilated. She derailed his train of thought when she yanked his head upward by a handful of his hair. "We are Judith." It sounded like Judith anyway. "And her name was Octavia." He saw the knife in her hand just as it bit into his throat. The pain was unbearable, but only for a moment. Catherine Kenefi. "The dead don't look like people." "I don't think so, anyway. People ask how I do what I do. Homicide detective, not undertaker, in case you were confused, and stay sane. And the answer is really that simple. Maybe it makes me a latent sociopath, but when I see something so devoid of warmth, of breath, and movement, I just can't fathom the idea of it ever having had any. That might change at some point, of course, Maybe in 5, 10, 20 years, an avalanche of realization will reduce me to a twitchy clump of neuroses suitable only for desk work. But I think it's more likely just a small-scale version of what we feel when we're in mourning. When you're told someone you love is dead, whether you wail and rend your clothes or just put your hand over your mouth and sit down, you don't really understand in that moment that the person is never coming back, and all that implies. Not really. Why then should I feel that way when I see the body of a stranger? The guy in Seward Park with the slit throat was far from the worst I'd seen, but he caught my attention because he was positioned in a way that made it look like he was staring right at me. I know I just made him a big song and dance about how the dead don't bother me, but this is less to do with their being dead, and more to do with the feeling of being watched. It was 7 a.m. It was far too cold and too early to be without coffee, but the coffee we had was too hot to chug. Frustrating, but we were having a better morning than the Vic, at least. I dug his license out of his wallet. "Hey, Donnie," I called to my partner. "Get this. Martin Vickner." Donnie Bark laughed. "Maybe we should find Jimmy Perpington and haul him in." Donnie Klein's a skinny guy from Flatbush Avenue who's tough in a way you can only get from a lifetime of people assuming you're weak. He's on edge a lot, which can be a problem in our line of work. He's not dumb by any stretch of the imagination, but he moves too quickly to consider all the angles. That said, he's great for banter. I leaned in over the body. Cause of death appears to be severed jugular. Shape of the cut strongly suggests it was done with a knife. Head wound, blunt force trauma. Wound is scabbed over everywhere at the bottom. Vic was likely dealt a softer subsequent blow in the same general area. I slowly lift the body's arm by the sleeve of its jacket. Bruising on wrist is consistent with handcuffs. Right index finger has been forcibly removed. Powder burns indicate by firearm. Donnie broke into my trance even though he fucking knows I hate that. "Are we looking for a bullet?" he asked. I shook my head and pulled my scarf tighter around my neck. Now this was done here. To cut his throat this thoroughly without putting him on his knees, he'd have to be about 7 feet tall, but there's no dirt or grass stains on his pants. I stepped back and took a deep breath. This is the part I call BTO, besides the obvious. I used to always explain that it didn't stand for Bachman-Turner Overdrive, until I realized that nobody under 50 got the reference. I feel old enough at 32 already, so I dropped it. Okay, so the finger thing, first off, not sure what the purpose was, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't torture. "Why not?" said Donnie. "We know they had a knife, right? If you can't take somebody's finger just to inflict pain, you go with the knife. Much more intimate, takes longer, shows you're not squeamish, way more than shooting off a finger. Gang thing? Kill a stranger, bring back his finger to prove it? But why blow it off if you need it intact and you got a knife with you? Especially if it's just some guy off the street. Gunshot's gonna bring the cops. Beyond that, if they're not out just to inflict pain, why not shoot him rather than cut his throat? But on the other hand, if they're out to inflict pain, why not cut the finger off rather than shoot it?" I stood there with my eyes closed for a second. So I'd say what we got here is the killing was personal, hence the knife, but the time was limited, so whatever purpose the thing with the finger served had to be done with the gun. I cautiously tilted my coffee toward the tip of my tongue. Finally suitable for drinking. Let's head back, see what we got on the guy. Let's hope there's something on the books that jibes with a slit throat, because otherwise we're starting from scratch. Any police department, particularly a big city police department, is still very much a boys' club, whatever they might tell you. I'm good at what I do, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but these aren't circumstances one person alone is going to change. I'm sure it would be worse if I was some skinny blonde with huge tits. As it is, I'm about 5'8", black hair, blue eyes, with an ass and a belly. When you see a woman cop on TV, she doesn't look like me. The boys are much more subtle these days. I'm not getting my ass grabbed or porn stuck in my desk, but I've felt their gaze every time I'm allowed myself to get angry or passionate about anything on the job. You just see the shared mental growth going up among all the lads. Bitches be emotionally compromised, am I right? That's why I'd never be able to work domestic or sex crimes. Hell yes, I'm emotionally compromised when it comes to that. So I shuddered when I put Vickner's name into the system and found the forcible rape and sexual battery charges from 2005. I'm not the kind of person who thinks everyone accused should be presumed to be guilty, but the evidence and facts of the case were very much against Vickner. Well, except for the fact that he was willing to snitch for them. Loath as I was to admit it, Vickner's prize meant I was going to have to talk to Octavia Tuck. You ask a cop why they became a cop, and you'll get all sorts of answers of various levels of sincerity, but I doubt a lot of them will say to shake down rape victims. Some of them might think it, though. Forensics had determined that Vickner's time of death was around 3 in the morning, indicating that he was either dropped in the park by someone who had to travel at least an hour to get there or who wanted to wait until the rain stopped. Unfortunately, this also meant Octavia's alibi would likely be that she was home in bed with no one to corroborate. I put it off for as long as I could, looking around for known associates of Rashad Powell, the dealer Victor enrolled over on, but none of them were credible enough as killers to bear further investigation. The ugly truth was, Powell had been a small-timer who was mostly just selling nickel bags to his friends that didn't even appear to own a gun. But as far as the cops could tell, he was a threat to the community in black, which automatically made him a bigger fish than the rapist. I drove to Octavia's apartment in Bed-Stuy around 11 in the morning, girding myself to feel like shit. Octavia answered on the second knock. She was a gorgeous woman in her late 20s with huge liquid eyes who wore her hair short and natural. She looked tired, but she was fully dressed. I tugged the bottom of my jacket aside to show her my shield. Are you Octavia? I'm Detective Kenevi, Homicide. Can I come in? She looked genuinely surprised, which was good news for my conscience. Yes, of course. Come on in. I crossed the threshold. Her apartment was small but well decorated and felt like somebody's home. She'd done a lot with a little. I looked around with the sincerest nice place you got here face I could manage and tried to make what I had to say sound conversational. When's the last time you spoke to Martin, Vickner? She gave a small start at the mention of his name. That's something most survivors do, in my experience. Doesn't matter how young or old, how recent or distant the experience, or how they're dealing with it. There's always something about hearing that one name that shakes you on a primal level. Some people I should say, have learned to suppress it, but her reaction was impossible to miss. If I had to guess, and I'm a cop, so of course I have to guess, I'd say she hadn't thought about him in a while before I brought him up. The not feeling like shit train had left without me. Octavia fixed her eyes on the wall opposite her. I haven't spoken to him since he raped me, Detective. Why, is he dead? Bullshit time was over, apparently. Yeah, he is, Mrs. Tuck. He suffer? It's not something I can go into. She closed her eyes for a second and then opened them. Wow, she said. I don't feel any better at all. Did you think you would? I don't know. I never seriously thought it'd happen anytime soon. He likes to feel stronger than people. Someone like that, I figure he'd just steer clear of anyone he might hit back. A lot of people have brothers or fathers. She shrugged. I wouldn't know anything about that. I do know who waited until I was sure I didn't have anybody before he went for me. And let's just cut the bullshit, and you ask me where I was when it happened, and I tell you I was on a plane. This I hadn't seen coming. Bad detective, no donut. A plane? From where? North Dakota. Just got back about a couple hours ago, matter of fact. I tried not to let my relief show. Who's in North Dakota? My cousin Jessica. I must have looked confused because she said, there are black girls in North Dakota, kind of defensively. She got up and picked up a purse from the counter, fishing out a boarding pass. Red eye from Bismarck Airport, ETA 9:50 a.m. She was clean, thank God. Guess my work here is done, I said, getting to my feet. Sorry to bother you, Miss Tuck. Detective, she asked. You can find whoever killed him? That's what they pay me for. She stared at me a little too long. I hope it wasn't one of the girls he hurt that did it. She shook her head. I don't like the idea of him driving someone to kill on top of everything else. I truly had no answer for that, so it was a relief when I felt the purr of a text against my thigh. It was from the captain, a link to a video with the added message, "The fuck is this?" I headed for the door and turned to Octavia. Thanks for your time, ma'am. Have a nice day.